Hello, everyone. I'm Tectonic Improv, and I welcome you to the Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War Spoilercast. I'm joined by a friend of mine named. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's me, Matt. Matt GFX on Twitter, or Matthew Graphics, as people have started to unironically call me. I do graphic design a lot of the time. I also just like shitpost much more often on Twitter, which is what people probably like know me for. So, yeah, I also like Fire Emblem, so I guess I'm a good fit for this.
Yeah, you're a big Three Houses fan, I hear.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of it.
So I don't usually do like podcast stuff for like the main channel or anything. But I thought it'd be a cool idea to do something for a game like Genealogy of the Holy War, because recently I got back into Fire Emblem in a pretty big way, and just started kind of playing through a bunch of the games again. I I kind of got my start back in like 2015, I think, when I played through the Sacred Stones on the Ambassador program for the 3DS. Did you did you
I
you've played Sacred Stones, right?
I haven't played Sacred Stones actually. I haven't played
Oh,
like
no shit.
a lot of the FE games.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. How many of them? How many have you played?
I've started with FE1. I looked at Gaiden and I was scared. I played like a fair amount of FE3. A lot of the Fire Emblems
Yep.
I like played and like got the basic gist of it and like didn't have the motivation to finish because of like other things I had to do at the time.
Sure.
Then there was Genealogy, that one I played like twice. FE5 Thracia I started as well. I last year I beat Binding Blade. Before that I
Yeah.
did FE7.
I just beat Binding Blade actually,
Yeah, Binding Blade.
just last month.
Binding Blade is very good.
I like Binding Blade
Mhm.
quite a bit actually.
I well, we can get into this like later, like when we talk about the series. Before we get caught
Yeah.
up on this, Sacred Stones, like I said, never played it. What's the name of the continent?
Path of
Yeah,
Radiance,
Path of
like
Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I never played. I
the Tellius games. Yeah.
Yeah, the Talius games. I'm planning to do that like eventually soon. I was thinking about streaming it actually because it might be fun.
Yeah.
FE, yeah, the DS and 3DS Fire Emblem games I never really played. I got to play like a little bit of Awakening when I visited a friend and saw their 3DS and was like, "Hey, can I look at Awakening?" Seemed interesting.
Okay.
That was like before like Robin and Lucina were announced to Smash 4 as well. Like I heard a lot about
Oh yeah.
Awakening because like it was a really fucking big deal at the time when it came out.
Yeah. Awakening blew the fuck up. I
Yeah,
remember. I remember there was talk. I remember when it got announced that it was getting localized, because people didn't even think it was gonna happen, because what was it? New Mystery of the Emblem didn't get localized, so
yeah, because of Shadow.
Awakening was up in the air.
Yeah, and the Shadow Dragon remake was like it did kind of okay, but like not to the point where it's like
Yeah.
okay, it's worth putting the resources into this. And
And
yeah, I also played Three Houses as a big fan of that game.
so I'd say we have about a similar experience with the series. That's
Yeah,
good to know,
just
because
about.
I didn't want to sound too stupid when talking about some of these games. So did you play them in order? How did you get into how did you decide to finally play Genealogy, the Holy War?
Like
Yeah, so like you were playing like FE Heroes. Did you like happen to see like Sigurd or something? And
yes, I was like following that game like pretty closely because I was like curious to see what other characters from like games they would bring in, and like eventually I think it was like in June of the release year of Heroes that they brought in like genealogy characters, or like specifically Sigurd and Deirdre.
okay,
They
yeah.
added Seliph and Julia before that, but like I didn't like. I think
Didn't really like register
yeah, no, I think they were like in the base game even, and that just like kind of okay, it flew under the radar for me in that case.
because it was with everyone else.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
exactly.
big
So it's
pack.
like hard to remember like, oh yeah, I was excited for this because they announced it and everything. But like I saw Sigurd and everything, and like I really liked his design. It's like
Yeah, Sigurd looks fucking
yeah,
awesome.
no, like
Just gonna say that.
yeah, there's the funny comment you can make like haha blue hair sword, but Like his overall design is just like really cool. Like he likes the way they drew him in Heroes 2 is like also like a lot more like mature, I feel, compared to other Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah,
Like, have you seen
yeah,
his artwork from Heroes?
yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now.
it's like overall, like you can tell there's like a really distinct attempt to make him look a lot more like adult compared to other Fire Emblem protagonists in a way.
Yeah, because a lot of Fire Emblem protagonists are like teenagers and very
Yeah,
clearly
like
teenagers.
yeah, like
But
Roy is 15.
yeah, and he looks 15. And but like as I'm sure we'll get into, like pretty much all the characters in Gen 1 at least of Genealogy of the Holy War, they look like adults. At least most of them do.
Yeah, they do.
Um,
I
and
can't think of many.
as much as that art style can convey that, but you
Yeah,
know.
I just, on that topic, I really love the dialogue portraits on that game. I like the. I don't know why they did it, but like the portraits are all like drawn from this angle where it looks like they're they're drawn from like
Uh,
the center point
the
is like their cheekbone.
Yeah, yeah, or with like the 3/4, like
Yeah, like 3/4, but like from like below in a way from some for some characters.
what I like about it is how is that their portraits will like cut off at their shoulders, so
Yeah,
they'll just see this like awkward like area where the portrait just sort of ends, and I'm like,
yeah,
why does it look like that? But then you go inside the in like the indoor scenes where it kind of like where like the background kind of starts right when the
oh yeah,
portrait would cut
oh
off.
yeah, those are
So I guess
like
that's why.
yeah, the indoor scenes are like that. I never really like thought about it like that way. I definitely noticed it, but like I never was like, hmm.
Yeah,
Thinking about it, it's kind of strange.
it's still strange. I like it. I like it better in the GBA games where it cuts off like down
Yeah, like
past the shoulders.
yeah,
It
like
looks a little more natural,
yeah,
but
it looks
it's
like the
not.
characters are like
It's not
actually standing
terrible.
there.
Yeah, but so you saw him in like Heroes and like, oh, who's this guy?
Yeah, like I was curious about him. Like I saw him and like generally like the lore that they brought with the characters was like it seemed kind of interesting
Did they spoil the game?
in a way. Like not at first.
I hear Heroes is really bad about
Oh
that.
yeah, it really is. No, I what I remember from that FE4 banner was that they had Sigurd allude to the fact that
Uh,
that he
oh, uh, uh, uh,
not to like
by
the
by the way, But by the way, if you've never played Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War and you don't want to be spoiled, first of all, I just called it a spoiler cast 20 minutes ago,
I
so
was
what are you
about to
doing?
say, yeah.
Second off, uh, I think you should play it. I think if Fire Emblem or like strategy RPGs are interesting and you somehow against the grace of God, Fire Emblem fans haven't spoiled this game for you, please play it.
Exactly.
That
It's
that's all I'll say.
yeah, and well, I get to that in a moment, but like what Heroes did when they introduced Sigurd was like they had him allude to the fact that he loved Deirdre, and that was like a big plot point in that whole thing because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
he shouldn't do that, blah blah blah, and that stuff. And they also they also added Arvis in the same update as like a free unit that
Oh
you could
boy.
get through like a challenge map.
Oh yeah.
And a few of his dialogue options are like very 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 obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure.
Like from what I remember, they had like they do like these grand hero battle maps for those units that you can unlock from like they're like villain characters,
Yeah.
and I think a bit of the dialogue from that is like very, from what I remember, a bit spoilery.
On one hand, I kind of can't blame them for spoiling a at that point like what 20+ year old game, but
Yeah, it came out in like
it
the
sucks for the
mid-90s.
Western fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and that's yeah, that's what I wanted to get into. I saw the characters, I saw the name of the game. I was like, oh, I'm gonna look this up. It looks interesting. Then I saw like, oh, it's Japan only because it's like before the GBA era. Like I should have figured it out myself. So I asked around. I have a bunch of friends like in the Fire Emblem community that like really into the FE4 FE5 part of the series.
Yeah,
So I was
the
very quickly
jug drill, yug drill.
uh
How do you pronounce it? I always
I'm
used to say jug drill,
I
but that sounds
think
wrong.
I think one of the characters in Heroes pronounced it as Yggdrasil.
All right,
Yeah.
jug drill it is.
And
Just
yeah, they quickly hooked me up with both. With a very legitimate cartridge of FE4 and FE5.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and a dictionary so I could translate everything.
Oh, that's really nice of them.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, I
And
just downloaded it online.
yeah. No, and
Christ.
and people were like surprised that I wanted to play FE4 like as my second Fire Emblem game because like a lot of people view it
It,
as like a challenging game, which it definitely is. It's not too
mm,
easy. There's a lot of maps in that game where it's like, oh Jesus.
mm, yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, but at the same time, that game is like has so many options that makes a playthrough like a lot more bearable than like other FE games.
Yeah,
Like you have like the quick save option like in the middle of the map that you can like use at your leisure without like any kind of limit.
yeah, that's a lifesaver
Yeah, and
for that game.
that alone is like so valuable and so good to the point where it's like, oh, it's not really like I wouldn't call the game like obscenely difficult and it's not like super unforgiving.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not incredibly hard. Um,
From what I remember, FE5 is the unforgiving difficult one of the two.
yeah, Thracia. I remember hearing about Thracia years ago. I think back in like almost a decade ago, people would talk about that game in like hushed whispers. I remember it used to have the reputation for being like one of the hardest games ever made, which is kind of funny to think about now because
Yeah.
uh, now that more people have played it, obviously that claim is like overblown. But
Yeah, a little bit.
I've never played Thracia, but I've seen people play through it, and there's definitely some fucking crazy shit in that game.
Have you
But
do you remember how the fog of war looks like in that game?
the fuck of the fog, or
The fog, the blanket, rather.
yeah, Christ. Yeah,
For the uninitiated, fog of war in Fire Emblem usually just like covers up the units on the map because like, oh fuck, you can't see anything. But in
yeah,
Thracia, it puts just it completely
just
covers up
black.
the map and the units so you can't see anything.
It's genuinely like claustrophobic inducing. At
Yeah.
least
Like
it,
it
and it's also the first game with Fog of War, isn't it?
yeah, it's the first one with Fog of War if I remember, and also like the third map in the whole game is a Fog of War map.
Yeah, yeah. Was it the Gaiden chapter where you get the Lithis? I think.
I'm pretty sure. I don't quite remember. It's been a while since I played FE5, and like
I
I
just
said, I
watched a
haven't.
playthrough of it,
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's fresh in my mind. But yeah. So you got so some friends hooked you up. That's cool. They didn't spoil it or anything,
Yeah,
right?
no, they
They
didn't
were just
spoil
like,
it.
go ahead and play it, bro.
Yeah, basically. I
That's
knew
cool.
like since I was in a server with a bunch of like FE4 fans, I knew about the infamous barbecue scene, as people like to call it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
and that's like
the very funny Fire Emblem
yeah.
Community loves
I'll be
to call it
fair. I'll
that.
be fair. I think it's funny because
It
not
it is
because of
kind of it
the.
is kind of funny.
I think it's funny
I'm
mainly
being a little
because of the
rude.
presentation of that scene.
Yeah,
Because it's like it's this very dramatic and like really tragic scene, but it's portrayed with these tiny sprites that like just shake around a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's doing what it can with the game
yeah.
it has.
I mean,
Uh,
I can't really fault it for it. It's just like very funny because I remember one of the emotes in that server was just like that entire cutscene as like a 16 by 16 GIF.
all right, that's pretty funny.
It is funny.
Uh, it, I, from where I'm coming from, I think it's just one of those things where it's like it's just one of those like ubiquitous memes in
Yeah,
communities that people just like or people just like spout when they don't really have anything, or where they just
yeah,
kind of want to be part
basically.
of the group, which is fine. But
I
it's
think every game
also,
has it at this point. It's like
of course,
it's
yeah,
it's it's the chic Zelda of Ocarina of Fire,
kinda,
basically.
yeah. It's um, yeah, I'd agree. Uh, so I've been trying to think of how I first heard about Genealogy of the Holy War, and I think it was I think one of the big things that uh first got me aware of Genealogy of the Holy War was there was this mod for Smash Bros called Project M.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The in
Mm-hmm.
there's a Sigurd costume for Marth, and I remember seeing that and being like, oh yeah, this costume looks fucking cool as shit. What's it from? Oh, Sigurd. I know. Sigurd. I've heard that name before. And just kind of stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
Genealogy of the Holy War is kind of it's a very uh, well loved game in the Fire Emblem community for those who
It,
have played it.
yeah. It really,
For
really
most,
is.
I'd say there are definitely some people who don't like it, but
Yeah. Now that you
yeah,
mentioned, that was also the first time I was probably exposed to that. But like,
yeah,
I
yeah. Because
definitely
you
heard
play
of.
PM, right?
Yeah, I definitely heard of FE4 and Sigurd before, but like I never like at the time when I was like interested enough to like research it and like get into the series as a whole. So
Yeah,
I never really was
it's
like, oh okay.
I think another thing that tipped me off about genealogy's existence is whenever people would talk about awakening and they talk about the child mechanic, they'd always bring up that it started in genealogy,
Oh yeah, it really
that's where
did.
it came from.
Hmm. And they also handled
And
that really well in FE4, but we'll get into that when we talk about like gameplay and story stuff.
yeah, fuck, we've been talking for like a half hour and we still technically haven't really talked about
Yeah,
genealogy.
well, there's a lot of to. Yeah, there's. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
there's a
just
lot
a
to
lot of.
unpack here.
Yeah.
I But yeah, that's pretty much how I found how I heard about genealogy. People would probably I probably talk about it on like V or something or whatever I was browsing the time, and it was always just like that Fire Emblem game that everyone really likes, and I never knew, and apparently because it has like an amazing story. What I didn't
Yeah.
realize until like maybe 6 months ago is that Genealogy of the Holy War is not your average Fire Emblem game. I was always under the impression that it was just your standard like chapter by chapter small maps, route enemies, seize thrones or stuff like that. Like Mystery of the Emblem was, or how like Sacred Stones and stuff was. But um no, actually, Genealogy of the Holy War is probably the most different out of any of the Fire Emblem games, except for maybe Gaiden. Would you
Absolutely.
agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Like every other Fire Emblem game compared to that is like fairly condensed maps. Like
Mm.
always, like the terrain layout is like usually always like in a square shape, so it's like easy to look
Yeah.
on like on a smaller screen. Like a lot of the Fire Emblem games are like on older hardware or on handheld, so I can understand why the maps are set up like that. But in Genealogy, they like really went out of their way to make the maps as big as possible and also like as interconnected as possible. And that is like the
Yeah.
one thing that I really, really like about it.
That's something when I first played through Genealogy, and I finished the prologue and I got to chapter 1, and the chapter started where the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
chapter ended. I was like, "Oh shit, that's fucking cool as
Yeah,
hell."
that is cool, and that alone already like does so much for like the overall presentation and like the immersion of that game because it's like look at other Fire Emblem games and you could tell me that two maps like in the context of that story were the same despite them being like were like in the same area despite them
Yeah.
being like 20 chapters apart and I would believe you because it's just like there's no real connection between them. But like in Genealogy, the plot like follows your gameplay pretty closely. Like, oh, we're traveling right now. We're at this castle. Oh,
Yeah.
there's the next objective and everything. So it's yeah, it's really really different and it's like really really cool in general. It's
It
like it really they really put a lot of work into putting like making Juke Draw as expansive as possible.
it really puts the emphasis in the war aspect of Holy War, I'd say, because it
Yeah,
it
definitely.
you can, ignoring the fact that you don't like command literal like armies of people, but it does, for a lot of points it feels like you're like sending this huge battalion of soldiers up against another big battalion, which is
Yeah.
uh something I'll be sure to like bring up. But like so Genealogy of the Holy War, it's like it's a 10 chapter game, and Fire Emblem games usually run the gamut of maybe like 20 chapters on like the lower on the shorter side, like Crimson Flower or Sacred Stones is probably around 20 chapters or so,
Yeah,
or it can go up to like 30 something, I think. Stuff like that.
I
But what you
think
need
I
to
think Thracia
keep
had like a really high chapter count because that game also like went back to having smaller maps.
Thracia, it just plays like a normal Fire Emblem game, and has lots of guidance chapters, or
Yeah.
like, or whatever you want to call them. But like there's 10 chapters in Genealogy, and each of them have massive. I believe it's uh uh is it 56 by 56 spray, or 56 tiles or something like that.
I
Or no, it's 64. It's 64 by 64
yeah.
like pixels wide
Mhm.
for each of the maps.
All
And that
tiles wide.
is
So yeah,
massive. It is
it's
huge.
it's incredible. Like it's definitely daunting for like a first time player. But like I said, there's so many options for like the gameplay that makes it a lot more like easier to like take it all in and follow. So it's
Yeah.
nowhere
So
near
so
as daunting as it looks. It's really, really yeah, it's I wouldn't even like I said, people say it's hard to get into because of how big it is, but at the same time there's so much going on that it's like yeah, you can just do it. It's not an absolute like chore to undergo.
it's so you consider well, why don't we talk about our thoughts on the game as a whole? Because I approached you because I knew that you're a huge genealogy guy. Is this your favorite Fire Emblem game?
It's probably up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I like Binding Blade a lot as well, but I think what holds that game back for me is like how tedious that game is to get the good ending in, and that's what I try to do.
Yes, it is.
Like you have to follow so many steps, and that like kind of yeah, I wouldn't say soured the experience, but it like held it back for being my favorite. FE4 is
but
definitely my favorite Fire Emblem game.
Binding Blade has some like really weird things that I don't understand why they did. Like moments like getting. I think there's like 8 Gaiden chapters in total that you need to get the true ending,
Yeah, you have to
which
collect all
have
of the heroes'
sacred
relics.
weapons.
Yeah, sacred
Yeah.
weapons.
And then there's like the hit rates are not nearly as high as they are in
The
other
the hit
games.
rates in that
Like
game are whew.
your X
y'all,
pros are worthless for a lot of the game.
y'all like XCOM? Fire
Yeah,
Emblem's got you covered.
exactly. And also like a lot of the ambush spawns early on in the game, like
Oh
what was it,
god,
the
yeah.
chapter with Rutger is really cruel to
Yeah,
people
oh
who
god.
don't
It
know,
is.
because
And
he'll
also
just show up and then just fuck you.
like recruiting him in that chapter is also like just an absolute hell to undergo because you first have to deal with the fact that he's a Myrmidon, meaning that he will probably just kill any of your units thanks to the shitty hit rates.
I what was it? When I was playing through Binding Blade, he spawned, he ambush spawned, like he spawns and then he just immediately goes. It's not like how it is in some other Fire Emblem games where you get like a turn of like a breathing turn to like figure out your bearings. No, in Binding Blade, when enemy reinforcements show up, they immediately get to act.
Yep, and
And
it's the worst.
he attacked my my Shauna. Shauna was just in range of him. And
Oh
thank
no.
Christ she dodged like his one. She got hit once, and if she got hit again, she would have been dead. But thankfully, I think she dodged like a 72 or something like that.
Oh boy, yeah,
Thank Christ, because I would
that
have
is
been sad
luck.
if I lost her.
Yeah, no,
She made it to the end of the game.
I remember. Doesn't Rutger also spawn with like two other
Yeah,
units?
he comes with a
Yeah,
couple goons.
yeah. No, what happened was in order to recruit him, you have to talk to him with like
Clarine,
yeah,
right?
Clarine because
Your
he
troubadour
yeah
who can't attack
yeah
and
and
will die.
what happened was I had to reset so many goddamn times on that map because the goons he spawns with kept killing her.
Eh, that's funny.
Yeah, but like on that topic, since we're talking about recruiting characters, FE4 also has like a few optional recruits, but those aren't like nearly as tedious to undergo. And there's
Yeah,
also
I think the most tedious one is near the end of the game with Hannibal. I think he's probably the hardest guy to recruit.
I don't think I recruited him. I'm pretty sure.
He's the general in chapter 9 when you're finishing up in Thracia. He's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, I
the dude with the
remember.
big beard. Yeah.
Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, I think he died before I could recruit him. I also
Well,
didn't. What were you going to say?
he's I managed to recruit him by like baiting him with I believe I used Oifi to kind of like goad him away from my army and
Yeah,
lead him to his like kid, because the way you recruit Hannibal is you have to get his like adopted son or
yeah,
whatever out of the castle ahead of the castle that he's at. So you need to somehow sneak past his army of generals, which isn't too hard because they don't have good movement in that game.
yeah. They do.
You and then you need to rescue his kid from the preceding castle and then somehow get his kid all the way to him. I had no fucking clue how I was supposed to do it, but I tried luring him away, and that worked. So
Yeah.
so I managed
Also
to
on that
get
map, you
Hannibal.
can recruit Leaf's sister. I forgot her name.
Yeah, Altena.
Altena. Yeah, and I remember trying to do that, and I couldn't get to because I think after a while she retreats. Like she just
Yeah.
completely flies away. And what I tried was you have to talk to her with Leaf. What I remember from what I
Yep.
remember. And I
Yeah.
tried to like get to a point where I could talk to her after she's out of the mountain area that's there.
Yep.
And like by the time I would have been able to, she started retreating because I beat another unit on the map.
Oh,
And yeah,
she ran out of
yeah,
because I think the genealogy AI has it so that like commander units will just retreat if all of
yeah,
their other units are gone. So that
yep,
must have been what
yeah.
happened. That sucks.
That's what happens. And I didn't quick save, so I didn't do it. And it was just like, yeah, okay, happens, I guess.
To be fair, you Altena, I was kind of let down by Altena because she comes with the gay bolg or
Yeah,
whatever, and she's a dragon or a Draco rider, so you're like, oh shit, she must be fucking sick, and she's not terrible, but like,
she's not
it,
that amazing
she's not that
overall.
she's not nearly as good as some of your as you would be led to believe, especially if you've played other Fire Emblem games where like flying units are like god tier, like
Especially
Milady
Wyvern.
in FE6.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
god, Milady was absolutely insane.
Yeah, or just like Pegasus Knights in general. It's the way genealogy is structured, it's not very kind to flyers, which is kind of refreshing in a way,
Yeah,
because
it really is.
flyers are almost always some of the best units in all other Fire Emblem games.
That game is
But
also
like,
like it's balanced really well, I'd say. I'll hit my mic there.
it's
It's
okay.
yeah.
I think so overall, I'd say my thoughts on genealogy are that like I thought it was I thought it was a good game. I thought it was actually like pretty good, pretty
Yeah,
great
it
even.
definitely is.
I'd probably give it like a I don't know what I fucking give it for a score, but I enjoyed my time with it, and I did like it quite a bit. However, I do have the game has some issues for me, and I think one of the issues is how dominating cavalry units are
Yeah,
in genealogy.
that is the main issue. And also like another thing that I personally found really weird was like how doubling in that game works.
Yeah, it's a skill.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And there's one item in the game that lets you equip that skill, the
pursuit
yeah,
ring.
the pursuit ring
Yeah.
that you can get with like if
You
you have to move
you need
Arden
to,
and
yep.
a fucking army unit to the most like far off corner of the map, so it takes like 30,000 turns.
I didn't get that.
I didn't know about it on
Because
my first playthrough, so
yeah, you definitely need like either someone to tell you or like a guide to figure out
yeah,
to get
absolutely.
that pursuit ring with Arden. Because first of all, like the game even explicitly tells you in the prologue to just like keep Arden in the castle. Don't move him. It's not worth it, and it isn't because
Yeah.
because in Gene because if you try to use Arden or pretty much most foot units, some of them can keep up, but a lot of them will be left in the dust because because of these huge maps, your movement stat has never been more important than it
Yeah,
is in
absolutely. And
genealogy.
that's how like a lot of the movement heavy classes like cavalry become in like super valuable to you.
It's like how paladins are some of the most OP classes in like the GBA Fire Emblem games.
Yeah.
It's almost worse in this game because it gets to the point where if you're not on a horse, like what are you even doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like horse like cavalry units in that game also have like a lot of like from what I remember they have a lot of speed and everything, so it's like
Yeah, usually
they're
they
very very good at like evading attacks a lot of the time.
there's and you know, not to say that just because you get a horse that means you're good, because you know there are some units that aren't that great. Like Alec and Noish aren't amazing, even though they're cavalry units. They're
Yeah, they're
so they can at least like keep up in battle.
uh-huh.
But you know they're pretty. They have some pretty middling stats overall, and it's because they're you know they're the Christmas calves or whatever. Just basically like this archetype
Yeah,
that's in almost every Fire Emblem
the
game of
two
like
the two cavaliers.
the two cavaliers you get near the beginning of the game that are just kind of there until you get better units. Um, what are
Which in genealogy isn't very rare either. Like you get a lot of really good units pretty
the game kind of front loads a lot of units
yeah.
onto you. Uh, I think you stop getting units around maybe chapter or in Gen 1 at least because Genealogy of the Holy War it's separated into it's basically a two-parter game and
Yeah.
you know you play part 1 as one cast and then part 2 as a separate cast but we'll once again we'll get into that.
Yeah. It's
They stopped giving you units I think around I think Brigid in chapter 3 is the last one you get. No,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brigid, Claude, and uh, Tailty, I think is her name.
Yeah, I told you.
Tailtew, thank you. Yeah, the translation I played had some like has some like weird inconsistencies with spellings like Ernius is just Aaron.
Oh, yeah, Aramis.
Lachesis is Rakesis.
Oh,
Rakesis.
you played the old translation. Yeah.
Oh, is that the old
Yeah,
one?
there's two translations. There's one that's like they just took like the I forgot the term for it. Like the Japanese pronunciation and just put that into English.
Oh, okay.
But like the newer translation actually like considered it like how those names are like all taken from like either
Greek.
mythology or like
Yeah.
yeah, like mythological names or like a lot
There's a
of
guy named Ares in this game.
yeah. And also I'm pretty sure that like Lachesis was also like a mythological thing, like I think Norse mythology.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard the name Lachesis before.
Hmm. Yeah, and what happened with the newer translation is they took those names and like figured, okay, those are taken from mythology. These ones are like a lot of the names in FE4 are like from have Germanic origin. I've noticed. So
Yeah, I've heard about that.
yeah, so
That's
they
why it's your favorite, right?
no, not really. Yeah, no, but so they like properly translated them. Like I remember the old translation had like Julia translated as like Uria, like
or like a Celis
yeah, Celis too. So like the newer translation fixes all those things and like puts the names into
Fury.
better. Oh yeah.
That one was so weird because I go on Saren's Forest and just like see like all right so is there anything I missed in this chapter? Who the fuck is Fury? And I just did some I did some process of elimination. It's like oh Aaron.
Yeah,
Hi.
it's weird.
Okay.
It's weird. But yeah, that's like overall the yeah, speaking of the Germanic stuff, I remember like a friend of mine being very upset at how they translated certain names or like certain regions in Fire Emblem Heroes when they brought them in.
Oh
And
yeah.
he was like, "This sounds stupid. Why is the name like this?" And I'm like, "It's based on a German location. I feel bad now." Like
Yeah, because there's
one of the places was like earlier like the fan days was like Manster or something. Yeah.
yeah
Oh yeah,
it
that was the place Leaf was from, like the
yeah
Prince of Manster.
the Manster
And
district or
in
whatever. It's actually like Munster or
yeah,
something
that's how
like.
they translated it. And that friend was very upset at that because it sounded stupid. And then I showed him like a map of Germany with like a city with literally the same name.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where people have been calling it Manster for
Yeah, exactly.
almost 15 years now. So
Like you can't blame
it's
them.
just
It's like
mm,
the thing they're used to. That's also like why a lot of people still like call Self Sellers because that's like they've been in the
yeah,
fandom for like 15 years or so or whatever. So of
it's
course,
just yeah,
yeah. So of course they're gonna have a hard time like adjusting to new names.
yeah. The do you have a do you have any favorite units from Gen 1 you'd want to talk about?
Um, Personally, like I liked Sigurd a lot. Like as a character, I thought he was
Of
cool,
course.
and I
I love Sigurd.
yeah, he's really
I
cool.
think he's fucking awesome.
Like the way
Like
they
a really good character.
yeah, he's well rounded in like everything. His motivations and all like make sense and all. It's not like the usual Fire Emblem young protag of I'm gonna save my kingdom. It's like
He kind of is like that, but it's
there's a lot of like details around it that like make him more
yeah,
interesting.
there's more there's more to it in a way, or rather like the story itself is aware of that kind of like cliche and sort of like questions Sigurd at almost every way. It just really punishes that fucking poor man.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. Like considering what happens to him.
He get not even including the moment, but like everything goes wrong for this guy,
Yeah,
and even through it, he always like finds a way to kind of keep shoveling forward and
yeah.
just doing what he thinks is right. It's really admirable.
Yeah, and also like there's so many things that like on the topic of things that happened to him, like a lot of his like old childhood friends are like riled up against him, like thanks to like the nature of war and everything.
Yeah,
So
just
he's
the politics
yeah.
like Eldergan.
Yeah, Eldergan, like that specifically. You can from what I remember, like either you can kill Eldergan on that map, or if you take too long he gets executed. Something like that.
So the way I had no fucking clue how you were supposed to defeat Eldergan in chapter 3. There's this moment where you have to face off against this guy named Eldergan, and Eldergan actually helps you in like chapter 1. I think it's a really cool moment because you when you're all the way down at the bottom of the map trying to seize this castle, this like third party castle near like the top left of the map, it's completely out of the way. There's no way you could ever get to it
Yeah.
in time when this moment happens. It just decides to send an army at your home base. So you see that and you're like, oh shit, I'm fucked. How is Arden gonna take on all these guys? And then suddenly it just plays this cutscene where this guy named Eldergan just shows up and he's like, they're heading towards Sigurd's castle. I'll assist him. And then you just see this like as you're playing through the game at the end of your enemy or at the end of your player phase, it'll just go right back up to the top of the map where you'll see Eldergan and his like paladins just fucking like melt these dudes for you.
Yeah,
It's a really cool
it is
way to
cool.
like make immediately make Eldergan likable, and it makes
Like a
it
demonstration
even
of strength
sad.
and all.
Yeah, because like you see this guy, he's like, oh, he's hot shit. He's badass. He's kicking everyone's ass. And then when you have to fight him in chapter 3 because his allegiance is with another kingdom, and he's like loyal to death over instead of Sigurd. You know,
Yeah.
he chooses his kingdom over Sigurd, which is sad, but you kind of almost get it in a way. Just like
It's the nature of war,
yeah,
essentially, and that's what makes like a lot of the story stuff so much more like tragic in a way.
yeah, it's the story of genealogy is definitely a tragedy.
Yeah,
But like
absolutely.
you get to this part in chapter 3 where you have Eldergan and his I believe they're called the Cross Knights, and it's just like 15 cavalier units, and you see them and you're like, well, how the I had no fucking clue how I was supposed to beat them. Lex can only take on so many at once, and and I thought I don't think I looked this up. I think I thought about it. I used my gamer brain for a bit, and I was like, all right, well, hang on, let's think about this for a minute. Eldergan, obviously, he doesn't want to fight. He just has to. So maybe there's a way you can sort of convince him to not fight.
Yeah.
And oh, it just so happens that we have his sister Lachesis on our army. So if I can maybe find a way to get her to him, maybe I can stop this. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, that it works. You can, if you send Lachesis to talk to Eldergan, then he'll go back. His rest of his army won't go back, but Eldergan will go back, and he'll just be taken out of the fight. And yeah, he gets executed. You don't see anything. This is kind of a problem I have with the game sometimes. Is that like the presentation can be a little lacking. I
Yeah,
almost like
definitely.
wasn't really aware that they had like killed him in this cutscene. They just kind of say like off with his head, and he's like no, and then he's
Yeah,
dead.
that's how it plays out.
It's like
Uh,
that's kind of anticlimactic,
Also,
but
I'm
there are points where the presentation is fucking on point. But
yeah. Also,
we'll
if I
get to
remember
that.
correctly, if you talk to Eldigan with like he says he gives you his sword. Like
Uh,
I'm pretty sure that was
yeah,
something.
yeah, 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 yeah. She gets the Earth Sword,
Yeah, that's how
which
it
is
was.
basically like a Nosferatu sword. Um, if only she got Eldegan's sword, but then
Yeah,
I guess his kid wouldn't have it.
yeah,
So
exactly. Ares has it. So, oh yeah, that's where the name Ares was used. I remember now.
yeah, it's okay. I'm sure it's been a while since you've played the game.
Yeah, it's been like 2 years by now.
Thankfully, I've just played it, so I can.
No,
I
3 years
still have a lot of
actually.
it fresh
Jesus.
in my brain. Oh damn! Maybe you're due a replay.
I was thinking about it, but I'll see when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're like mentioning characters like Ares and Seliph, we might as well like talk about the story and like the time skip and how that whole like happens.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, genealogy is split into like two halves, and there's the first half where you play as you're playing as Sigurd, and basically trying to quell uh this sort of like unrest that's going on throughout all of the continent of Yggdrasil, and it's basically like playing whack a mole. Like Sigurd stops these this like bandit nation from the now I don't remember the fucking name of the country now. It's the one that's in the bottom left. He stops them, and then suddenly there's problems over here, and then there's problems over there, uh, and suddenly Sigurd, he finds like a wife and a kid and whatnot. The there what was it? You actually uh the whole like Deirdre Sigurd romance thing actually happens a lot quicker than I thought it would.
Yeah, the thing is like she's introduced like in the first chapter, like aside from the
Yeah.
prologue, like chapter 1 is the Lady of the Forest, that's like the whole plot there.
Yep.
Sigurd finds her, falls in love with her, and they get like
And they get hitched.
yeah, they hit it up really fast. But just as fast, she also gets like kidnapped again, and like
She gets kidnapped in
yeah,
chapter 3 by Manfroy.
yeah. See, chapter 3, all of that stuff happens in that chapter, and Sigurd is just there and has to see it.
Yeah, he's kind of chapter 3 I'd say is when the shit starts falling apart for Sigurd,
Yeah, and
because
also
in that chapter
like exiled, right?
because at
Uh,
the end of that chapter his what was it, Lord Byron, his dad, gets framed for the murder of the next in line for the throne. I forget his name. He's some no name. He doesn't matter really. He's just a plot device essentially. But
basically.
yeah, so Sigurd is branded a traitor, and it's like, oh shit. And then you go to the winter level.
Yeah, the ice level.
Kind of just chill there for a while.
You go to
Um,
World 3 of New Super Mario Brothers.
it is that, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And it's the third continent you go to, or it's the fourth, I guess technically. Um, but it's not like Sigurd doesn't like, obviously he's not doing this alone. He actually gets a lot of help from like all sorts of different nations,
yeah,
which is kind of interesting because all these warring nations are technically fighting each other, and yet Sigurd's army kind of has like a melting pot of
yeah. That's the
he has some
interesting.
people from Leonster, which is which is where the Manster district near Thracia is. Quan Quan decides to help him because he's married to Sigurd's sister, so of course he would help him.
Yeah, of
And he's
course.
just a good guy.
Yeah, and Quan is just
And
generally cool.
and he brings along his squire Finn, who we need to talk about Finn in soon
Yeah,
because holy shit.
we can talk a little bit about Thracia, like as a whole.
Yeah. I think once we get to the whole Thracia arc of genealogy, we can
Yeah.
kind of get into that because it's its own can of worms. But I have a lot to say about Finn.
Yeah,
in
like
particular.
about the whole part about like Sigurd's art being like a melting pot. I think like a lot of the from what I remember, like a lot of the story details about like the war itself are like a little bit like foggy in the back of my head
Yeah,
because of, like 3 years ago I played this game, so
I mean, I only played it last month, and it's still somewhat foggy for me because
Yeah.
it is a lot to unpack.
Like,
This game
from what I
is very
remember-
complex.
yeah, from what I remember, like a lot of the conflict in like the first half is caused by like a little bit of miscommunication in a way.
Yeah,
Because,
that's
like-
pretty much the theme of the game.
Because like Sigurd's like the place he lives in is attacked by like the Verdane army at the beginning,
Verdane, that was
Yeah.
that was the country. Thank you.
and so he sets out to like fight off Verdane to essentially make them stop, and then he finds out, oh, there's more like armies up there, we should stop them.
Yeah,
And,
and
like,
then
It's
and all
slowly
these,
but sure,
these
like,
countries
Like in a way, he unknowingly like
is a warmonger,
yeah,
kind of.
basically he thinks he's doing like this noble deed of like stopping the war, but he's just like causing more tragedy a lot of the time.
Yeah, he's kind of, and Lewin even so much as points that out, and
Yeah.
there's a talk conversation you can have with him in chapter 2 where Lewin, who is this kind of estranged prince from Silice, that was the name, the winter capital, the winter country Silice. He's a former prince turned bard character. He's a cool guy.
He really is cool.
But he gives some pretty deserving critique of Sigurd in chapter 2.
He's the most like honest character in the game. He's like the most self-aware Fire Emblem character.
I like him a lot. There's actually a funny story I have with Lewin, and it has to do with his sacred weapon, the Forcetti. So if you've ever played a Fire Emblem game, you would know that there's, pretty much every single Fire Emblem game has these like special weapons that are like super strong and super powerful, and they kind of wreck shit. Well, Genealogy kind of like takes that to like its logical extreme and makes them the most like busted weapons in all of existence. Like they're not only like used to like seal away ancient evils, but they pretty much just like melt anything you like touch with them.
Yeah.
And Lewin, since he's like royalty, he has the holy blood, which allows him to wield one of these weapons called the Forcetti, which is like this wind tome that can like fucking cause hurricanes or whatever. It's really badass, and I forgot to get it.
Oh no. Oh, no.
I have no one to blame but myself, because the game, when you're in chapter 3, when you're in Lewin's home country, the game is so in so much as tells you, go to this castle and as Lewin, and you will get something cool. And I think what I did is I warped him back to the home castle instead of the actual castle he was supposed to go. I was like, I don't get it. What? Nothing happened. Oh well. And then just forgot.
Oh,
So Lewin's kid just never had Forcetti. Said never got it. He was still actually pretty good without it, but damn, that kind of wish I didn't fuck that up.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things you can miss so easily that are like really, really useful in FE4.
Yeah,
like the pursuit ring is definitely one of them. I think it's very useful overall.
Pursuit would be very nice.
But yeah, also like some of the weapons, some of the recruits you can miss easily despite the characters being really, really good.
Yeah, I think mostly it's with like recruiting and talk conversations. This is something I really liked about Genealogy, is that like if you go into the character menu, it'll tell you what character, if a character can talk to someone.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, no other Fire Emblem game does that.
Yeah,
Uh,
usually like they only tell you when you're like next to the unit you can talk to.
yeah, and I thought that was such a cool feature
Yeah,
because
because it makes you like know right away like, hey, I have to use this character to get there.
yeah, and it usually results in some good shit because like in chapter 1, if you have, I believe, Quan talk to Finn, he just gets like a free like +2 strength and +2 speed,
Yeah, it's really cool.
which early on in the game is like huge. It's huge for a guy like Finn. And then even better in chapter 2, if you have him talk to him again, he gets the Brave Lance, which lets him double, on top of the fact that Finn has pursuit. So he for the trash units you'll be fighting at that point in the game, Finn will probably be attacking 4 times. So all of a sudden, Finn has become like one of your best units. And if it was any other Fire Emblem game, you might just miss that. But since the game tells you that Quan has something to say to Finn, you won't. You probably, chances are, you won't miss it.
Yeah,
And I like that a lot.
and that's really good. It definitely helps also like with the maps being as huge as they are, so you don't have
Yeah.
to like move all these characters that might be slow all over these huge fucking maps.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing with Fire Emblem 4 is that you'll want, because there's no deployment limit, you'll think, and because this is how I thought, like, oh, just deploy everyone. Do not deploy everyone.
No,
Save yourself the
don't.
trouble,
Yeah,
and treat the castle as just a bench.
basically.
Because some guys just won't be worth moving,
Yeah,
which
and
is kind of
if you
sad to
get them,
say, but
and if you get them out, there's like the risk of them like getting killed by something because there's also a lot of
yeah.
a lot of reinforcement that can spawn like really far back and just fuck up your
and
castle.
and the enemy placements in Genealogy is something you kind of you got to get used to, because I feel like I've said that like 8 times by this point, but in Genealogy, it's not, you just are literally thrown at blobs of units. Like you will have, it's like real armies in a way. It's like you're playing Risk. You'll be up against this like 3 by 12 grid of cavaliers, and there isn't really a lot you can do to sort of strategically place units so that they won't get counterattacked. I've noticed, or at least on my playthrough, the way, it's another reason why horse units are so good is because they have the skill called Canto, which lets them move
Yeah.
after they
I
attack.
by the way, I really like that they brought that back in Three Houses. I think it's a really cool mechanic.
I like Canto. I think it's a good mechanic, but I think it also makes Cavalier units a little too good.
Yeah, definitely. But there's like a lot of things that like they could do to balance it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
overall
Like
it's
Thracia, I think Thracia actually does a really good job in balancing Cavalier units, because the way they do it is that if there's ever in an indoor chapter, uh, cavalry units and like Pegasus or flyer units are just automatically dismounted, so
yeah.
that which makes sense, because when I'm playing through Sacred Stones and I see like Seth running through castles on his horse, it's like, all right, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
And it also just it's a good power balance, because cavalry units in Thracia are just weaker than average on foot units without their horse. I like it. Uh, but yeah, back to Genealogy.
Yeah.
That was one of my problems with the game, is that is is that it sort of it kind of encouraged turtling for me. I think I turtled more in this game than I have in any other Fire Emblem. Just kind
Yeah.
of wait for the enemies to come to me, and then kind of like place my guys around like so.
Yeah, it's definitely by design because of a lot of the enemy placements being the way they are. But yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
I
like
get what they're going for. I really do.
hmm. But yeah, about the story, like the thing we actually wanted to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
I'm
sorry. It's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we can like, or like, you can cut things out that are like a little too like repetitive or like too like off the beaten path, I guess. No, but like the thing with the story is the thing that people like remember the most are definitely like the surrounding details around the war, like characters like Arvis being as interesting as they are, the time skip as a whole, the way every
Arvis.
the way everything
So
plays out, like generally after
yeah,
the time skip. But yeah,
I have a lot to say about Arvis because I didn't really know anything about him outside of the fact outside of like the big thing about Arvis and what he
yeah,
does in the
exactly.
plot. But like I really I don't want to say I I actually I wrote notes. I wrote notes for some stuff like uh did he did nothing wrong? Lamau no. That's my note for him.
Yeah,
Uh
basically.
but he actually I didn't expect him to be one of those characters. I just assumed that he was just evil guy. And I came out of this game a lot more impressed with the way they convey Arvis because he kind of has his goal is kind of virtuous in a way.
Yeah, he wants to like help unify the continent and all.
He wants to unify Yggdrasil, and he does. He does it. And the way he does it's just the way he does it is what eventually leads to his downfall.
Yeah, like the whole no cost to great like attitude about it, which
Yeah, the because so Arvis. Uh, well, another thing I like about Arvis is that he's introduced in the prologue, and the way he's introduced is he shows up as an ally unit, and he's like if any enemies like go near him, they'll just get fucking getting torched. They're getting
yeah,
fucking torched by his Valflame
yeah.
book or whatever.
He's
But
just he's just super
he
strong. He's like as evil as he is also just a cool guy, like a cool villain.
yeah, he's cool. He's cool, and he's actually not a bad guy in chapter one or in the prologue. He
He's not
actually
introduced as one, basically. He
yeah, he although his music is very suspect.
yeah,
When you
like
hear it, it's like
it's very funny in retrospect.
but yeah, he helps Sigurd in the prologue by giving him a silver sword, which just like you'll be using that silver sword for the rest of the game essentially.
Basically. Yeah, and
It's very helpful.
yeah, like on the topic of Arvis, like the way he's also pulled off, like with him being tricked by the dark priest of the Church of Laughter and everything to like
Yeah, man.
get where he wants to. All of that stuff is like really cool, and I find it interesting that they lifted those plot details of him and basically put them into Edelgard in Three Houses. That game is like
She's even the Flame Emperor.
yeah, basically like a lot of Three Houses elements are like taken straight from FE4's like lore and everything.
Yeah.
But it falls short in so many ways when trying to replicate them. It's really, really sad.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna say that the Loptier cult is like an amazing villain because
Really
to be
isn't,
honest,
but
I don't really care for the evil cult stuff. But it wasn't as bad as I was led to believe.
yeah, it's also like the way it's pulled off as well. Like it just works. It doesn't feel like just we need we need a group of like evil doers. Let's just do an evil church of like dragon worshippers.
Yeah, and they even give him some backstory in the
Yeah,
second half
and
of the
also
game to
the
kind of
way
like
like
contextualize them in a way, which
yeah.
is interesting.
And also, like, the whole thing, like, the thing that makes Arvis, like, in the end, empathetic, because you fight him again, like, in the second
Yeah,
generation, and at that point, he's, like, this
he's a
broken...
broken man.
Yeah,
At
he's a
that
broken
point.
man. Like, he realized what he had done and, like, how he was tricked and everything. He saw how his son, Julius, turned out. We didn't even mention Julius yet. Jesus Christ.
We haven't really talked about Gen 2 at all.
Yeah, no, but Arvis works as a sympathetic villain for me because he wasn't
I
aware
agree.
of what the Church of Lopter wanted to do. But and
I think he was in some way he was definitely in some way aware of like the general idea of what they wanted because I believe there's like a talk conversation in chapter 5 when he's talking to Manfroy about how he's like, oh Manfroy, you're not allowed to be here right now, you or it's like It just stuff like that. He
He
knows that
knows.
they're obviously up to no good, but I think at that point he's like young and he's in over his head.
Yeah,
He thinks that he can control it
he
because
knows that they're like up to something, but at the same time, he doesn't think it's like a massive continent level
yeah,
threat.
he thinks he can handle it.
Yeah, essentially, but he's very quickly like reminded of like, hey, no, fucko, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, yeah. I
They
don't.
revived Satan.
Yeah, exactly. They probably he. I think he expected them to try and go after him, but they probably he probably didn't expect them to go after his kid.
Yeah, exactly.
But like something. So something I think is also interesting about Arvis is his relationship to Deirdre, and
Yeah.
it's so Deirdre is Sigurd's wife in all the way up until like chapter 3, and then she gets kidnapped by Manfroy. And then she's just gone from the plot until the end of chapter 5 when it's revealed that her memories have been wiped and she is now Arvis's wife.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to interpret this. And I think one that's probably the most interesting is that Arvis didn't know that Sigurd was married to Deirdre before. I think it's more interesting to interpret it as him being unaware of this relationship they had, which
Yeah,
kind of makes it a little more tragic in a way.
it
He
is.
definitely knows by the time the 4th of July barbecue happens because of the way he reacts
Yeah,
to
essentially.
Deirdre and Sigurd, but he seems from the dialogue it seems like he's genuinely caught off guard by the situation.
Yeah, he is, definitely.
And I just think that's interesting. And also apparently they're like distantly related in some way.
Yeah, that's the thing that like people always like point out. The thing is, I think from what I remember is if you look at the family tree that they like had like in the lore, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that they like shared either a parent or a grandparent.
It's not like they're brother sister, but it's definitely medieval if you get what I'm saying.
It's very suspect, and like
Yes.
if they remake Genealogy, I can easily see them retconning some of those details because
I would like to see a remake of
me
Genealogy.
too.
I think
I really hope it's the next in line. I can also see it like happening fairly soon because of like
it's been a
FE4.
while
Yeah,
since a Fire Emblem game
and
came
also
out.
like FE4 being such a big influence on Three Houses. Like I'd imagine they would want to go back on it.
Yeah, I think Genealogy could definitely do for a remake for a lot of stuff like the presentation thing I was talking about earlier. There or just all right, fuck it. Let's talk about the barbecue scene or just chapter 5 in general.
Yeah,
I fucking love chapter 5. I think it is amazing.
it was really really good.
The, because at that point a lot of the frustrations I had with the gameplay of Genealogy was mostly gone because my units were really strong, so they could handle a lot of stuff. I even got Lachesis promoted. And
Yeah.
have you ever promoted Lachesis in Genealogy?
I'm pretty sure I remember doing that, and she was really, really cool after that. Like super cool.
Yeah,
Like cases in
she
general.
promotes. Yeah, she. I love Lachesis.
Yeah, like she's introduced as like
my waifu.
yeah. No, she's introduced as like the first class you see her as is like a healer, if I remember.
Yeah, she's like a princess, so she can
Yeah,
like use swords and staves, but she's on foot,
yeah, and like
and she has a good skill which gives nearby units plus 10 hit in the void.
yeah, basically.
So she's good, but
And also like when you like hear that, oh, she's a Fire Emblem character who's a princess and heals, so she's gonna be like the dainty, fragile little flower. Basically.
yeah.
But her characterization is so fucking cool.
Yeah, I like her. I like what was it when she's talking to Eldergan in chapter 2? I don't remember the exact phrasing or whatever. It's just like if only there was a man out there who was half as good as Eldergan was.
Yeah.
It's like, but that'll never happen, or something like that. It's just I like her characterization. I think
She
it's
is
really cool.
It's yeah.
And and it helps that if you go through the trouble of promoting Lachesis, she promotes into probably the most busted class in Fire Emblem history. It's called Master Knight, and they're proficient. I think they have A rank in I think every single skill except for like light and dark,
Yep.
which no one's proficient in dark skills. So like if you go through the trouble of promoting Lachesis to level at level 20, then she just becomes one of your best units.
I looked it
Uh,
up. Weapon levels, all of them are A except for light.
it's fucked up. Leaf also promotes into Master Knight too.
Yeah.
So definitely two characters you want to give attention to, and be it sticking them near the castle and constantly warping characters back to it.
Yeah, essentially.
But yeah, chapter 5, it just does a really good job of making things like feel like final and also a little off. Like the music in Genealogy is so fucking good.
It has a lot of really good music. Like the music alone, like for the final chapter, it works so fucking well.
Chapter 5 or the final
The
chapter?
final chapter.
Yeah, because that's probably my favorite track
Because
in the
like
game.
at that point, like it's like at that point you have like driven back all of the enemy forces. Like the only real threat at the end is the castle that Julius is in, and like Julius in
And
general.
the Dead Lords, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, like it's already like an uphill battle for you, and the music illustrates that so fucking well.
Yeah, and it uses the leitmotif from chapter 6 when you first start playing
Yeah,
as the Gen 2 boys. Yeah, it's a really really great song, and the final chapter is mostly great. But but chapter 5 is also just a standout of the game, cuz you really run the gamut of of all of all sorts of shit. Like you get Lord Byron's sword with Sigurd.
yeah, the
Uh
chirping.
yeah, the Tearfing. Oh god, the Tearfing. Thankfully, someone told me that if you're repairing weapons in Genealogy and you don't have the exact amount, it'll just take however much you have and give you like and give you however much you can pay for.
Yeah,
Because like
exactly.
the Tearfing comes broken, so you have to if unless you have 50,000 gold on Sigurd, you would think you can't use it, but if you just repair it with like 10k, you'll get like 10 uses out of it, which is kind of enough
Yeah, that's enough for like
because
to deal like with difficult.
for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the Tearfing on Sigurd just mulches like anyone essentially.
it really, really does.
My I think obviously the probably the highlight of the low light I guess of the chapter outside of the ending is when Quan, Ethlin, and the Leonster Knights go through the desert. I think that's a really really
That whole
it's like the
segment.
reverse of the Eldergan moment where these guys who have basically like saved your ass for the first like 3 chapters of the game are essentially helpless as they just get it's really brutal
Yeah, like
if like because you can't it kind of has to be left to your imagination in that regard, and you just like imagining these like these these cavalry units on horseback just being like pecked apart by these dragons is really terrifying.
yeah, like also like the people like riding the dragons being like fucking lance knights. So the dragons are pecking away
Yeah,
at them and they're being fucking stabbed with lances.
skewered.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh god,
Meanwhile, they're
yeah,
just like
it's
stuck on horseback in a desert.
fucking what a terrible way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
I gotta
really,
say,
really crazy.
Ethlyn, kind of a bad mom. Not gonna lie.
A little bit.
Why is she bringing her kid in the middle of a battle?
Yeah, that's.
But whatever. It was whatever. That's just mostly like a funny little like observation.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Well,
it's
funny.
really fucked up. No, yeah, funny. Uh, it's really fucked up, and it really makes you hate Trevant,
Yeah.
who is a lot like who's actually a lot like Arvis in a way. He's kind of he's a more interesting character than he would originally let on.
Mhm.
Although he's definitely more I don't know. I'd say they're about as as bad.
His goal is also like to make sure that Thracia stays like stable and everything, but at the same
Yeah,
time, his means for that are also like, oh, I can just kill.
it's weird about one of my notes I wrote is Trevant is almost an amazing character because I would there's a lot of stuff about Trevant that's really interesting to me. Where like in chapter 9 when he's talking to Altena and Arian I think is his son's name. Um,
Yeah,
like the way he talks he clearly like cares for his kingdom. Like he gives a shit about making sure that the people of Thracia are treated right because they're notoriously not treated right as they actually go into in Thracia 776 more.
hmm,
But like it's kind of like how in Echoes the land of oh Christ, the land of Rigel isn't really like habitable for like raising for like growing food and stuff. Thracia is a lot like that,
yeah,
and Trevant just wants to make sure that like his people are well fed essentially. But there's also like the way he carries himself in a way. It's this a lot of the lines. Whenever I would think that like, oh, this Trevant guy is like kind of complex, he would just immediately say something like really cartoonishly evil that kind of took me out of it.
he really is like a cartoony villain. Like if you look at the way he acts, like in battle,
Yeah, and it's
they
not
added
like
him
with
to
Arvis where he's
to
putting on a
Fire.
front.
Yeah, they added him to
Oh,
Fire Emblem
oh,
Heroes a while ago, and
oh, they did.
yeah,
Oh,
they did.
cool.
It was also like one of those like free units you can get, so it falls, flies under the radar really easily.
I guess they do that
They do that
for
for
like
yeah, they do that for
the
villains,
villains of the
so it's
games
not.
because they did that. I remember when I was playing Heroes, they did that for Narcian from FE6.
Yeah, they did that for Narcian. They did that for K- Camus from FE1 or 3. I forgot which one. Uh, yeah, they just generally do that with villains, except for like the really major, really cool
Yeah, the
villains,
big bats. Yeah.
like Grima, for example, being featured very heavily. Meanwhile, someone like Walhart being
Walhart, yeah.
yeah being relegated to that.
But yeah. There one overall though, I do like Trevant as a character because just mostly because of the one like his last thing he does is he's like Arian, I'm leaving the castle to you. I'm gonna go and take care of them. It's like here's Gungnir, take care of it. And he's like, but father, you need Gungnir. You're going to get killed if
Hmm.
you don't bring Gungnir. Why aren't you bringing it? It's like take care of the castle. I've got this. He's like very clearly like marching to his death because he knows that his time is up,
Yeah,
and I think that's a really cool like character moment, and it's another thing. I think that I think it would be handled better in a remake, just like Trevant's character.
yeah. Like a lot of there's a lot of cool moments that are just like they just suffer from the SNES presentation of the game.
Yeah,
And that's not something you can fault the game for. It's just like it's harder
not
to
really. No.
it's just harder to like really put yourself in these moments and be like, oh shit.
Yeah. The but yeah, the final moment in chapter 5 where where the big thing happens.
Yeah.
It actually I will cut like Fire Emblem fans who just like thoughtlessly like spoil this moment out of context. It's kind of very clearly set up in that chapter. Like
Yeah,
you have
no,
all
it's
sorts of talk conversations where that don't result in like stat boosts or anything. It's mostly but it's just between the characters you like pair up essentially because if you this game has like a pair up mechanic like Awakening where if you have characters just like chill close to each other they'll eventually become like lovers.
yeah,
And
it's a really neat way of handling supports, I think.
yeah, it's good. And like all the talk conversations in that chapter, they just all kind of have this melancholy feeling. There's just and even like with the music, there's just this kind of bad feeling about everything, and the fact that Oifi and Shannon are hustled off with Seliph, There like stuff seems to be going down, but it still feels like a gut punch, and I think that really uh, gives credence to the quality of the game.
Yeah, they did the most they could with the with what they had, and it really really paid off. I think it's a really solid experience in that way.
Yeah, because you get to the final castle of in chapter 5, and then these Velthomer mages who have just been bugging you for the past like half hour with their meteor spells, they all of a sudden they turn coat and they start helping you, and it's like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. I don't have to worry about these guys, and then you seize the castle, and Lady Ida, I think is her name, is
Yeah.
just like, ah, yes, Lord Arvis has been awaiting you, Sigurd. And he's like, oh, all's well that ends well. It's like, ah, Sigurd, you dipshit. But
Yeah.
and then it plays this triumphant music where wherever all of your units are here, and they're all surrounded by these all these other all these other like ally units. Like, oh, that's awesome. It's a welcoming party. We're going to Belhalla. And then Arvis is just talking to him. It's the first time these two have talked in years in the timeline, because this game takes place like chapters in this game are like set a year apart almost.
Was it a year? I don't think it was a full year. I think it's like a month maybe.
Is no, it's definitely more than a month, because Seliph
Oh yeah,
Seliph is
Celeb is
like
like
a
2 years old by the time.
he's 2 years old, so yeah, it's it's a long stretch of time this game like covers.
Hmm.
And it's the first time these two have talked, and it's just like, oh, how you doing? It's like, oh, I'm doing great. It's like, oh, thanks for the welcoming party. And it's like, yeah, no problem, no problem, Sigurd, anything for a friend. And it's like, can't wait to go to the reception at Valhalla, haha, unless. And then Arvis is like, actually, just kidding. And then the music stops, and you're like,
Yeah, because like this is the setup from like earlier when it was like when Sigurd and his father were framed for like murder.
yeah,
Like this is like the moment of like, oh hey, by the way, you did this, you're getting punished for it.
yeah,
Or like this is what
exactly.
the people
It's
believe you
when that
think.
shoe drops, really.
Yeah, and then Arvis and his army just like completely destroy, they decimate your army,
Yeah,
including
just
Sigurd.
the meteors come raining down, and then this part I thought was really cool. It turns to grayscale, and then it's like, and thus ends Sigurd's journey. And it's like, oh shit, he like if you had never known like the plot twist or whatever, you've been like, oh shit, what, he's
Yeah,
dead.
like this is
The,
like Fire Emblem games usually like don't do like this.
Most games don't really do this.
Yeah, they would
There's like,
never like go as far as to kill off like the main lore that that you had for the entirety of the game up to that point. Like
he's ostensibly the main character, and they kill him off halfway through the game.
yeah, and then the second generation starts like 15 years later or so.
Yeah, it's
And
15 or so
yeah, and
years.
by that point, like Arvis has basically like unified Jukra as he wanted, but it's mainly controlled by the Church of Lopter in a way.
Yeah, it's something I thought that helped humanize Arvis in a way was that people even Lewin, I think, even brings up that like for a while the Empire was actually pretty good,
Yeah, exactly.
but it
But
just slowly
slowly,
insidiously
the
changed.
Lopterians took over.
And they also make it clear that Arvis is not like he's actively against the child hunts and tries to stop them at every step of the way, but just can't because his son is the devil.
Like,
But
like I said, the plot details like surrounding the war, like the stuff with Arvis, Sigurd, and everyone. That's the thing that people remember about the story, and that's also just like generally a really interesting and cool plot, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yes, I
It's not like
completely agree.
it's not like an outstanding plot or anything, but it's definitely like in terms of Fire Emblem games, it's certainly a lot more complex than what they usually go for.
Yes. It definitely is. And
And we've been saying a lot, like, oh, it's not like other Fire Emblem games, but that's like exactly what it is. This game is so unique in so many aspects, and that's what like makes it stand out so much.
yeah, totally. The so Gen 2. This is in like another game. You could honestly like end the game there, and you would still have like a pretty substantial game. I'd say it would be like a huge bummer of an ending, but like if the game ended there, I wouldn't be satisfied or anything. But the game. All right, let me rephrase it. The game sort of phrases it as an ending, and I think that's
Yeah,
really well.
essentially.
I think it's well done, and then it's just like, okay, but no, here's the next. Here's when
Yeah,
the shoe
and
drops.
also what I remember, like from how they pulled the second generation off, like you get that little like scene of like everyone dying, and the game telling you like thus Sigurd's story ends, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
shit. But like the immediate chapter after that, you're like, it's like 16 or so years later, and
yeah,
instantly starts with an assault on a castle that Sigurd's son Seliph is in, and
yes,
you instantly
yeah,
like
yeah.
have
It,
to
it
fend them
just,
off, and it's like an instant demonstration of like how strong and capable Seliph already is.
yeah. I really like Gen 2 kind of hits the ground running in a lot of ways, and I
Yeah,
really like that.
yeah. It like
Um,
it's an uphill battle like the whole way through, and it's especially demonstrated in the later chapters when you're like already taking down the big names in the enemy army.
yeah.
And
So something I think would be that could be better is maybe more maybe more of the Gen 2 like bosses could be like established in Gen 1 as like snot-nosed brats or whatever. Maybe not snot-nosed brats, but
yeah,
just like
yeah, no,
as characters, so it feels a little more impactful when you're overtaking their castles. Not all of them, mind you, but more Trevant. I wouldn't mind more Trevants, if that makes any sense. I would say the gameplay of Gen 2 I enjoy more than the gameplay of Gen 1, but I like the story of Gen 1 more than Gen 2. You there?
talk about Gen 2. Like we're just talking
Yes.
about how it's like an uphill battle through and through in a way. Because
Yeah.
like you start
Yeah.
off at like Seliph being like in a remote castle somewhere that's like the only part that isn't taken over completely.
In the country of Isaac.
Yeah,
Isaac.
and after that you like head towards the snow place, I believe.
You go through the desert into Thracia after.
Oh yeah,
So
right.
Seliph basically goes wherever Sigurd didn't go. But he really does tear a fucking warpath.
Yeah, he does.
And I do like that cuz like whereas like is Sigurd is like trying to put out fires and yet setting a blaze along the way. Seliph is kind of set intentionally setting things on fire in a controlled burn sort of way.
Yeah, basically.
How I don't know how good that metaphor is, but
I mean, it makes sense to me personally.
what one of my favorite things about Gen 2 is when they reintroduce the characters you knew some of the characters you knew from Gen 1 that lived. Like
Yeah, it's really cool.
when you see Oifi again,
Yeah,
holy shit. That
Oifi.
was so fucking
Yeah,
awesome
Oifi like
to
this.
see this.
Like at first he was like a tiny child basically, and now he's like this big bearded man.
Yeah, he's got this sick mustache and he's a paladin now. It's like,
Yeah,
"Oh my
it's
god.
fucking
He's This
insane.
is awesome."
And before that, Oifi was like if I remember, he was like a tactician in a way, right? He
He
was
was your
like your
tactician.
player stand-in at that point, but like in Gen 2, he's like his own character, and I think it's really,
Yeah.
really fucking cool.
I think that's one of the big strengths of Gen 2 is just seeing where the characters are now,
Yeah,
and which ones that are left. It's very ambiguous as to which ones live, and which
Hmm.
ones didn't at that
And
certain attack.
and also like what I mentioned earlier before the internet cut out.
Oh yeah.
um, the whole like the way they introduce like Leaf and Ares, like that whole thing, I think is like really poetic because it's like Ares, like the last time, Eldergan, I mean, the last time you see him, he's like basically an enemy, and you have to like, well, he's a friend that is forced to be an enemy to to your forces.
Yeah.
And when you meet his son, Ares, he's right away an enemy to your forces because he's under the impression that your
He
army,
was raised on the lie.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
raised on the lie that your army is the reason your father died, which his father died, which I mean, not too far off in a way.
but not
Yeah,
technically true.
yeah. Essentially, they were still like friends. It was not like they did it like because they wanted to or had to. Well, they had to ultimately, but still. And like Leaf is introduced as like this already like friend that's there for Selef, if I remember correctly, and that was also the
Ye-
case for Quan
yeah.
and Sigurd. So it's like a nice
It's
poetic.
it's 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 like poetry. It's sort of like they rhyme.
Yeah,
Quan in the prologue, Quan saves the rides in to save the day and help Sigurd, whereas it's the other way around. Selef goes to
yeah,
help
exactly. And
Leaf, who's being
it's just really cool, and it's such a good way of like reintroducing the relationships between those families.
yeah, yeah. It's really cool. Um, let's talk about Finn. Let's talk about Finn
Yes.
because Shannon is also another character that shows up, and it's cool that he's all grown up now and he's badass. He's a sword master, so he fucking takes names even though he doesn't have a horse. And Lewin is interesting, but
Yeah.
Finn is like the most punished character in all of Fire Emblem,
He
I would
is.
say.
Oof.
He like worse than Dimitri, I'd say.
Yeah.
So the deal with Finn is that in um when Quan and Ethlin sent the Legion of Leonster knights to assist Sigurd, he Finn stayed behind to take care of Leaf, right? And so he was essentially orphaned, and Finn had to basically just take care of him because there was no one else for him. And as we find out in Thracia, they basically live on the run for 15 or so years. There's a talk conversation where I believe in 4. It's definitely in 5 if it's not in 4, where they talk about where Leaf talks about how Finn would a lot of the times go without meals so that Leaf could have something to eat, and it's like, oh my god, this poor man.
It's insane how much like
He
Finn is like
so fucking loyal.
yeah, and like Finn is introduced as like rather he's a side character essentially in FE4, but he like is
Yeah,
established as this loyal, really fucking like down in everything. He's putting us all into making sure that his promise to Quan, like protecting Leaf, goes through as good as possible.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. It's the lengths Finn goes are so unbelievably insane. It really just makes him out to be such a great character.
Yeah, Finn
And
is he's great.
there's hang on, I need to find this talk conversation in particular because there's one that Finn has when he's talking to Altena when you recruit her. The translation I read on the podcast was pretty outdated, so I just decided to put in a clip from YouTube from the translation I played. So here you go. So I hope, first of all, I hope you all enjoyed my
It
my
was very good.
round robin English class reading of Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy, the Holy War support conversations. But that's just so tragic that Finn, that after everything Finn has done for to make sure that Leaf is alive, he still beats himself up so hard.
Yeah.
He's so hard on himself, and he just needs a break, man.
Yeah, it feels so awful for him. Like a lot of the details surrounding Finn like flew over my head on my first playthrough. But that's like just the nature of a first playthrough. Like a lot of the details that you're like later at the end of the game more aware of than ever, like just hit even harder on a second time.
Yeah. I totally agree. There's also like a conversation. I won't read this one either. I won't read this one too. But there's a conversation in Thracia where Finn talks to a character that kind of that is also tragic in a way. But I don't want to spoil Thracia.
Yeah, no, I haven't played Thracia either, so like at least not fully.
It just be aware that that Finn is obviously in Thracia since it follows Leaf, and he gets even more characterization. Finn is probably, after playing this game, Finn is probably one of my favorite characters in all of Fire Emblem that I've played.
Finn is really good. Like overall, like at first I was like a little confused. Like a lot of people really like him. Like he's a pretty popular character overall. And at first I was like a little confused, but then like the more like I thought about it later, I was like, huh, yeah, no, they're onto something.
He's had a hard life.
He really had. And it sucks so fucking hard that when they put them in Fire Emblem Heroes, they made them fucking garbage.
Oh.
Yeah, free units. They can't make them too good, otherwise people won't pay money.
True. Did you pair Finn up with anyone? Cause I actually didn't.
I didn't either. Like I didn't get too many pair ups like properly.
I got a couple. I instinctively didn't like look up optimal pairings. I just kind of did like, oh, these two would probably work together, stuff like that, and just kind of checked, and just kind of didn't really try and force anything.
Yeah, I was just told that I was supposed to pair up. I think it was Lewin and Aranis.
Yeah, well, that just seemed natural.
And
to me.
also Aira and I forgot the other one, Beowulf.
Holin? Oh, Beowulf. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I paired Aira up with Holin, who's the Myrmidon you get from completing the arena.
Oh yeah, that was also a thing. Yeah, no, that was. Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention. Since we more or less like we have talked about the plot and all like in a extensive way. I don't think we missed like anything too substantial that's like worth talking about. We like mentioned everything as like no.
I don't think we talked about Julius that
much. We
much.
haven't, but like at the same time, Julius isn't that.
He's really not that. He's not nearly as interesting
Some
as
of the other
as Arvis or Trevant are.
He's basically just like
or even Ishtar.
He's basically just like the evil guy possessed by dragon stand-in, and that's like as much as it goes. Like there's more to talk about, like in the way of like the way like he's the son of Deirdre and Arvis, and like the whole rabbit hole that whole situation is. But like aside from that, Julius isn't like overly interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like you can
what I think is funny about Julius is that the first time players will probably ever see him is I think in chapter 8 when Ishtar is sent out to like fight you. Once you beat her in battle, Julius just warps in and he's like, Ishtar, we gotta go by. And he just
I remember
away.
That. It was so silly.
I remember that happening and being like, oh, what? Wow. It reminds me of moments whenever I would play D&D and where there's like a character that the DM or even me really wants to make sure doesn't get killed, and they will think of any way to make sure that they survive, and it just makes me think that like the designers of 4 were like, oh shit, how do we get Ishtar out of here? Julia shows up and saves her.
It just reminds me of.
I just thought that was funny.
Let me find the picture.
Oh yeah. If you got a picture, send it my way. I'll make sure to put it in the podcast. But but yeah, I don't think I
This is
have. I
this
don't
is
think I have.
Julius warping in to save to save Ishtar.
Hey man, leave her alone. Except that guy will fuck you up.
Yeah, basically. He will fuck you up if you are a child and worthy of being sacrificed.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The child hunts thing like gets talked about, but it's not really that
Well,
big.
there's like the one,
It
like I think in chapter 9 where you like have to like directly save the children. But at the same
yeah, but
time
it's only
it's
like
like an
two or three of
and
them
it's
or
also an
something. It
optional
really
thing. It doesn't like
feels
really make a big
yeah.
difference.
It's it doesn't seem as big in the plot as maybe it was. Like it probably just they probably just didn't have time
Yeah.
to kind of focus on it because as far as from what I understand the development of genealogy is was very rocky.
Yeah.
And I would love to know more about it, but I don't know if we have the knowledge.
From
But
Also, the one
regardless,
for Thracia
uh,
was a little like all over the place
oh yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
like I think they worked on like a Fire Emblem for the N64 at first. They
yep,
figured, oh no, this is too difficult. Let's just like focus on the SNES again, and they
yeah.
shelved the ideas they had for every 64 for Fire Emblem 64 and just like expanded on every Force story a bit with Thracia.
I think it was a good
Yeah,
move
no, it was
overall.
definitely good. Wasn't Thracia released in
Uh,
like '98 or so? Like,
Thracia came out in
oh
1999.
god,
Yeah, it was like it was originally like a Nintendo Power like exclusive game where you needed to go to these like kiosk stations in Japan and download the game onto a
oh
cart to
yeah,
play it. I think like in 2000 it got like an actual cart release, and I believe it's actually the last Nintendo game for the SNES.
yeah, it is.
Well into the like when the N64 was on its last legs, which is really like crazy to think
Yeah, it
about.
really is.
Genealogy was also released pretty late into the
It was like
SNES.
95 or 96.
Yeah, 96. These guys are taking a while on their Fire Emblem games. Guess that's what happens when you're making fucking Paper Mario and Super Metroid and all that
Yeah,
shit.
basically. But like
Uh,
still it's really nice to see like that Fire Emblem like as primitive as the early days were, they still had like a big enough like people had like a big enough interest to like warrant making all these sequels.
yeah, Fire Emblem. As far as I'm aware, Fire Emblem was always like kind of big over there.
Yeah.
Not maybe not huge, not definitely not as huge as it was these days, but good
Yeah.
enough, big
And
enough to
it's
get
like
five sequels.
Nintendo's primary, well, like aside from Advance Wars when that was a thing. Rest in peace to
Yeah.
that. Uh
Yep. Rip. Sorry,
yeah.
Advance Wars.
But like it's Nintendo's like flagship like strategy series like
For
aside
sure.
from
Yeah,
like
and
RPGs, but
it's
like their RPGs are like what RPGs do they have that aren't like directly owned by another franchise? Like
Golden
oh yeah, Golden Sun.
Sun.
Like the other big one would be Pokemon, but Pokemon is like its own thing at this point.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little
Like
weird
Nintendo has the publishing
with
rights
that.
over it, I think.
Yeah, they have like a third stake in like the Pokemon company or
Yeah.
something, or like or a half stake, I
Something
believe,
along
and then
those
Game
lines.
Freak has the other half, or Creatures. I
Mm.
don't remember. No. It's a third stake in the Pokemon company because a third is Pokemon, and then the one third is Creatures Inc., and then the other third is Game Freak.
Ah,
So
okay.
it is a
Yeah.
weird. The rights of Pokemon is actually a lot stranger than you'd think, I
Yeah, it
guess.
really is. Like, do they even like still put like the Nintendo copyright on like Pokemon stuff, like anime stuff? Because I remember like old movies, like old Pokemon movies had like the like flash and Nintendo.
I don't think
Yeah,
they
they
do.
used to flash a Nintendo logo and all. But I think they
Yeah.
like got more and more like on their own the more they expanded, and it's understandable. So understandably so.
Yeah, true. Like Nintendo, Pokemon is like its own thing.
Mm,
But genealogy of the Holy War.
yeah.
We went on I went on a huge tangent. You were going to say something when I mentioned arenas. Did you want to talk about the arena system?
No, that was like just me like remembering that that was something you could do, like because I don't remember other Fire Emblem games giving you unlocks through the arena.
No, I don't think there are any, and that was a genuine surprise when I completed the arena, and then I just got this got a new
Yeah,
unit.
like I
I was
I
like, oh, that's
neglected the
cool.
arena at first, and then like I tried it, and then was like, oh shit, this is something you get.
the the arena the arena is really weird in Genealogy. It's unlike anything else. It's unlike any other arena in the series where arenas are pretty much just treated like gambling fights. And if you lose a unit in the arena, they just straight up die. In Genealogy, there's like it's like going through like a tower where the enemies get progressively harder. But if you lose in the arena, you don't die. You just get sent back to the castle at 1 HP. And this took me a while to really figure out, but when you figure out how to break the arena, it becomes essential to playing through
Yeah,
Genealogy because a lot of times you can sort of just like you can sort of just face roll arenas at 1 HP, and then if you complete a match at 1 HP, you get healed. So uh chapters beginning the first turn of every chapter in Genealogy will turn into the arena grind hour, where you send all of your units into the arena for a while to get some money and to get some experience, because because there is no you can't trade. You can't trade in Genealogy like you can in other Fire
yeah,
Emblem
you literally
games.
can. It's
So your units need money, and they all have their own like separate wallets. It's a really complicated system that I don't want to say that they should change if they were to ever remake it, because it's very clearly built around it. But I think they should definitely take a look at the arena, because it's too much.
yeah, like it's
It's very easily
and
broken.
like also the thing with like trying to change systems like that, where it's like, oh, units can't trade and they have their own sets of wallets. If you were to give
Yeah,
everyone like if you were to like give everyone the same wallet where like all the money goes into, the whole idea of like managing those units becomes like a side thing. And if you kept
yeah,
the unique wallets but also gave every character like the ability to trade, there would be no incentive to be like, oh shit, I should like watch my spendings and make sure I want buy the right things with the
yeah.
right characters.
I will say one thing. As much as it inconvenienced me a lot of the times, I never cared more about money in a Fire Emblem game
Yeah,
than I did in Genealogy of the Holy War. And also, it made thieves useful, because
yeah, good.
thieves have an ability to just give gold to anyone.
They just have a money printer on them.
Yeah, yeah, they got they all you have to do is send your thief into battle, which is very which is a very good idea, by the
Yeah.
way. Uh but yeah,
Hmm. I
there's a lot of
yeah.
quirks with
I
Genealogy, and I think that's one of
yeah,
them,
like
honestly.
again, there's a lot of unique things about Jesus Christ, there was a car outside.
Oh, I thought that was
No.
a cat.
No,
Funny German horn.
uh no, what I wanted to talk about earlier, like generally like FE4, like the first thing is like it's a unique Fire Emblem game. It's definitely like very much not like any other entry in the series in a lot of ways. Like at least from a gameplay
Yeah.
perspective. You can make the argument of like, oh, the story beats are similar if like character is betrayed or character fights war. There's a
There's
guy,
there's a lot of archetypes in
yeah,
Fire Emblem. In this, a lot of Fire Emblem archetypes in Genealogy. Like, you get your Jagan, you get your
you get
Camus or
your two
whatever. You get your
cavaliers.
you get your Christmas calves. It's very clearly still Fire Emblem. It just feels it feels like it's kind of like Zelda 2,
Yeah,
in
basically.
that like Zelda 2 is very clearly still a Zelda game, and it feels like a Zelda game, but also it feels like them taking the series in another
Yeah,
direction.
and that's basically what FE4 is. Like, there's a lot of like unique things about it, but the details surrounding it are so familiar that you're not alienated.
I'd agree
Yeah,
mostly.
but what I wanted to talk about again is how like the influence FE4 had on Three Houses, because
Oh yeah, of course.
I think that's like the last thing we could mention because like we mentioned just about everything else, and we've been going for like 2 hours by now. Yeah,
Yeah, we have.
but
I
I
don't
think
think I have
like talking
anything
about
else.
the latest game would be a good way to close this out.
Now, I'm not as familiar with Three Houses as I am with Genealogy because I haven't played it in
I
uh a
I've
long
I've
since it came
beaten
out
I've beaten
essentially.
every route in Three Houses as a like the stupid idiot I am who has too much time on their hands.
Yeah, I only did Verdant
Yeah,
Wind, so
I I started
uh
with Blue Lions with Azure Moon. Like Dimitri a lot. His character arc is super good.
I'm told that's a good
Yeah,
choice.
like the way he
I do like Dimitri from what I
yeah
know about him.
they did do a great job at writing him. Like compared to other Fire Emblem protagonists of like recent years, he's a lot more complex and a lot more interesting. But
Yes.
anyways, I beat every route in that game, so like a lot of the things about it still stick in my head. And the one thing that I will criticize the most about Three House is the lack of map variety among all routes and the amount of map reuse in places where
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. Because
I mean you reuse I mean I know it's like in the story, but even still it's
yeah,
still kind of lazy that you fight on Gronder Field like
yeah, and
twice.
also the I mean, Gronder Field, I get is like a poetic thing of like, oh, at first it was like a student thing, but now it's the real deal.
It's like now we used to be friends, but now we're
Colonel.
enemies.
But no, the more insulting thing I think is how there's a few paralog maps that are like there's a paralog
Oh god.
where you have to like bring Petra over to like the border in the Adrestrian Empire. It's like a forest with like a bit of water at the side. I don't know if you have done that
Yeah.
one.
Petra,
I mean, if you
no.
haven't done that
I don't think I
paralog,
did.
chances are you have done that map.
I've probably seen
Yeah,
that map.
because in
Is that the one is that the same map where the with the Marianne paralog?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it is. It is. Oh my fucking god!
I'm amazed I was able to
Oh my
guess
god! It is the same. Okay.
because that one has that one I do remember that one has rivers and a
Yeah,
big
there's a big
forest.
forest. There's like a little like temple structure in the middle of that forest. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yes,
in
yeah,
the
I'm pretty sure.
yeah in the Petra Bernadetta. I think it was Bernadetta in that one. Regardless, in that one you have to like bring her over to the border so she can talk to like her family or something. And it's established.
Okay.
It's like in the southwest corner of the continent. However, that map is reused like in three different paralogs, and it's the same
Oh, I see where you're
location.
going.
And it's in like, oh, it's a forest near the Garrickmark Monastery. It's a forest somewhere in near Fortiat or whatever. And that just ruins to me the entire immersion of like the world building because
I
because you
agree.
see all these locations that are the same, and it instantly takes you out. And compare that to FE4 with like its interconnected map, where they put so much thought into like the little details to make sure everything like matches everything.
You can if you can find this online, people, and I'll probably I'll put it in the video. There you if you look at a map of Jugdrill of Yggdrasil and you compare it with the maps in the game, it is almost one for one. You can splice the maps together, and you will just see it will just be
Yeah,
Yggdrasil,
essentially.
and it really does feel like you're like crossing
I opened
countries
the
in
I have a tab open
genealogy.
with the map, and it's like it's insane how much effort they put into like matching all of this.
It's really I honestly would love to see like a poster of the maps of genealogy spliced together because I
Yeah,
think
like with
that
like the proper colors and
it's a
everything,
really
so it
it's
fits.
honestly a pretty game.
It is pretty nice. I'd
I
love to see someone try to like match the rest of the maps to like fill out the gaps that are missing.
Yeah, it's mostly there. But yeah, I totally agree with you about Three Houses reusing maps and that damaging the
Yeah,
world
here
building. Yes, son
I
of a
linked a
bitch.
connection of the maps together.
Yeah, I mean like this works. And
It
like you scroll out and it's just like holy shit, this looks so
yeah, they put so
detailed.
much effort into it, and it's crazy. And another thing like that I mentioned Edelgard before and how like her character arc is very similar to that of Arvis.
Yeah.
Should I go into more detail about this? I don't know if you like care about spoilers there.
I don't
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I know
yeah,
what
basically,
happens
because
because I have my brothers played
yeah,
through the games, so
like the thing is, they try to like do the whole thing of like she has great ambition and wants to unify Fodlan, like kind of like Arvis has the same ambition and wants to unify Yggdrasil.
yeah.
And I guess it works. It's a good way to set up a character. And the problem with Edelgard, insert crossing arms Rensona here. No, what
The problem with the Flame Emperor.
the problem with her is the fact that the way they try to make her sympathetic just does not work with how her character plays out, with how she's working together with the clearly evil group of people.
So what I from what I understand is the reason that Edelgard does the thing she does is because she was branded she was artificially given a crest by the church, right?
Yeah,
So that
and even that,
and as we know that like fucks up with your
yeah,
life. I believe
it lowers your
Lysithia's
life expectancy,
support. Yeah.
and the thing is,
So pretty
yeah, no,
justifiable
and
reason.
the thing is, it actually like those experiments were done like by her royal family to make sure like she is like strong enough. At least from what I remember, it was either that or it was like those who slither in the dark, as they are referred to, without like a proper name. And
Yeah. Oh god, their name is so
yeah, like
bad, dude.
they even have like a name, like they are referred to as the Agarthans in the lore, and I don't know why people just don't stick to that.
Really, I
Yeah,
never
no,
knew
there's
that.
the one part where the main bad guy of that group like says something along the lines of "suffer the wrath of the Agarthans." So
And then he drops the
yeah,
base.
oh
Yeah.
god, don't remind me.
He sends his
Oh yeah, he
ICBMs.
senses leading general Skrillex. Yeah, no, but the thing is with Edelgard is she works together with those who slither in the dark to overthrow the church, and she is aware of how bad they are the entire time, and that just makes all of that fall apart to me because
Yeah,
in Arvis's
because like,
case, he has no fucking clue like what they're capable of and what they can do.
and he thinks he can
Yeah,
handle them too.
exactly.
He
And
thinks,
Edelgard thinks she can handle them, and she knows everything they do. So it's like, why have them here? Why bother making her like work together with the clearly evil group if you're gonna try to make her sympathetic in the end?
yeah, why wouldn't she cut ties with them like as soon as she
Yeah,
could?
I mean, she did do it as like by the time she.
Doesn't it happen like off
Yeah,
screen
no, she's.
in Crimson Flower? It's like, oh, by the way, they're
Yeah, no,
defeated now.
that's that. You know how like there's these epilogues, but it's like an old like medieval drawing of like Byleth and the rest. Yeah, that's
Yes.
what they. It's one of those. It's on one of those text crawls where it's like Edelgard and her friends beat those who slither in the dark. It's so stupid. But like I can
Very
see
clear.
why people like the different lore in Three Houses because like it's they clearly put a lot of thought into it. But there's so much in that game that just falls apart because of how poorly thought out other
Yeah.
elements are.
I like a lot of the
Yeah, the characters
characters
are
in Three
fun.
Houses.
Like I said, Dimitri is like definitely somewhere up there, like among my favorite fictional characters. And like a lot of the like even characters in Golden Deer that are like
The
yeah,
Pastimes, yeah.
and that house basically like a lot of people call it like the filler house because the characters aren't like as involved.
Yeah, they're very the Verdant Wind story is very like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what do
But
we? These guys are fighting each other. What should
yeah.
we do? They're almost like
Hmm.
Scooby Doo because they're the ones who fight those who
Like the
slither in the
only one
dark
where I'm
the most.
like the only one of the major Golden Deer characters. I think the major ones are characters like Claude, Lorenz, and Hilda, because
Yeah, Hilda's like she's the second
yeah,
in command of them, I
she's
think.
Claude's retainer. Even though you can recruit her on every route except for Edelgard's, she's the only retainer in the game that you can recruit.
What can I say? These hoes ain't
Yeah,
loyal.
these hoes ain't loyal.
Nah, I
She
love
is
Hilda.
fun.
She's my
Yeah, she's
girl.
fun. What I What I think would have been interesting with Claude's retainer though would have been if they maybe tried to go for something where it was Lawrence instead.
Yeah,
There's a
because
much
Lawrence is very
there's a
interesting. Their
yeah
dichotomy
the
because
I
they're
really don't
families.
like how people like just write Lawrence off as the weirdo because he's really really well written actually. Like they put
He's got that one support where he wants to see Leone's feet or something. I don't remember exactly who it was,
Leonie, you look
but
sweaty.
yeah. I think yeah that one.
I
It's
don't know why I put it.
I think we're seeing less of that
Yeah.
now because like back when the game first came out and people hadn't really played the game all the way
Mhm.
through, like you see this guy and he's like, oh, what a fucking weirdo
Yeah,
dweeb lizard guy.
exactly. Yeah, but no, I think it would have been interesting to do like an angle where Lorenz would his was his retainer because there's clearly a visible like quote unquote rivalry between the two. Like Claude being brought into
Yeah,
royalty because of like his blood, despite him being like such a laid back casual guy. And then there's Lorenz who tries his fucking hardest to be as refined and as noble as possible. It would have been interesting to see like an angle where he would like try to put Claude on the right path, and then like after the time skip, do something along the lines of Claude trying to like gain Lorenz's trust, so to unify the Leicester alliance. Because after the time skip, it's like a little bit how to say like a little bit like spread out and like a little bit torn apart.
mm. Yeah, I agree.
And as far as I remember, like in other routes, if you recruit Lorenz, he leaves after the time skip to like tend to his own territory.
Makes sense.
So like, why not do something like with the plot with that to make it a bit more interesting and unique from Silver Snow? They're just the exact fucking same.
They definitely bit off more than they could chew
Yeah,
with
they the game could have used
with
like
Three
maybe
Houses.
another year in development to like just make a lot of things more planned out. But overall, it's still like it's not like the game is awful and bad and irredeemable. It's still a very solid, fun experience.
Mm, yeah, I think is that everything?
I'm pretty sure that's just about everything we could talk about in this regard. It was very fun. I'm
All right.
surprised we managed to keep up a conversation about this one game for this long.
I'm not
It,
surprised. I can talk for fucking
I mean, at
ever.
the same time, it's a really big game with a lot of things going on that are worth talking about. So,
Uh, so yeah. I'll just give my final thoughts. Genealogy of the Holy War. Kind of like Three Houses is a very ambitious game, but I think for the most part, Genealogy manages to achieve a lot of the stuff it tries to go out for. There are some shortcomings to it, I would say. And a lot of it has to do with some of the gameplay. It can be a pretty big slog at times. Uh, there's you pretty much have to play with animations off. I don't.
yeah, it's
I got to chapter 2 and it was just going on for way too long to
it's
keep them on,
yeah,
which is
it's
a
really
shame
slow.
because you want to see the
The animations
animations.
are kind of fun. It's
But
like the way the battle animations are like presented. It's
yeah,
guys actually like jumping around and everything. Like the camera like follows them. It's really
yeah,
cool.
it's a major part of the presentation, and you really sacrifice. You're giving a lot of your lifespan away if you keep them on,
Yep.
especially if you reset as much as I do. But just stuff like that. Geez, I had something I wanted to say about the game. Okay. Here's just one thing I want to say before I go into my final thoughts
All right.
is that the Pavice skill, the one that the,
Oh
the
yeah,
generals get, that is just the no
it
skill,
really is.
sucks and better not be in any
Yeah,
remake, or make it so that the Nihil skill cancels it out, because I fucking hate that skill. It is so annoying. It pisses me the fuck off whenever it happens. It just wastes my time. Christ, God, I got so mad
it
whenever it
is.
happened.
Oh no, it's really annoying. Oh god, I almost forgot about it. But but then again, probably just like because of how long it's been.
Okay, all right. I remember my
Oh,
final thoughts. The thing is with Genealogy is it feels like a game that is better played on a second playthrough when you know what you're
yes,
doing, but
absolutely.
but uh I think it's also really important that you experience the story blind as you can
Hmm.
anyway. So there's kind of like a weird dichotomy there
You,
where it's like you play the game blind so you don't know the story, but then you don't really know how to play it,
yeah,
and then subsequent playthroughs are just easier for you. I think if I ever played Genealogy again, which it probably wouldn't be for a while because that's just not how I roll with Fire
yeah.
Emblem
No, I
games.
can't.
But
After Three Houses, like that game made me realize like you cannot play these games like replay them over and over so quickly.
yeah. So overall, it's not my favorite Fire Emblem game, but it's a game I respect a
Yeah,
lot, and I think I think people should play this one
they really should.
in any way you
If you
can.
if you are a fan of Fire Emblem, you should definitely just give this a try. Like just for the sake of experiencing how a Fire Emblem game can be, if it strays as far away from its path without like just being a completely different game,
Yeah,
essentially. My final thoughts on the game is that like just like you said, it's the first playthrough is the best for like experiencing the story, but the second playthrough is the best for the gameplay, essentially. Because like you know all the ins and outs, you understand how the vastly different systems work, and then
oh, we didn't talk about Lewin.
we did talk about them.
Oh, well, all right. So here's something I knew or I found out about Lewin in Gen 2 is that it's not Lewin.
Oh,
Did you not know
I
about
thought it
this?
was. Wait, or do I just like remember wrong?
It's there is so they kind of only imply it at the end of the game, but the way Lewin acts in Gen 2 is like almost he's a lot more like refined and like humbled, which makes sense when you first see him. But then the way he reacts to meeting his kids, it's like really strange how how much of a cold shoulder he gives them and just like doesn't really like regard their feelings in any
That's
way
interesting.
because he's essentially a deadbeat
Yeah.
dad. And it's it's kind of hinted at the end of the game when Seliph is talking to him that he apparently died in the Arvis attack, but he was revived uh revived under the soul of Forcetti.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah.
catch on to that. That's crazy.
It's
Holy shit.
something I think they probably could have gone into
Yeah.
more. But
Like in a remake, I feel like that's something that would put a lot more like special emphasis on.
or not Forcetti said, my mistake. Because he's or maybe it
It
is
was
Forcetti.
Forcetti.
I don't
I
remember,
just looked
whatever.
it up myself to like refresh myself, and yeah.
So he's technically not the same character, which is kind of sad in a way because it means that means he's dead.
Yeah.
But he works as a tactician in the second half of the game pretty well, and it's just nice to see him
Yeah,
again.
it's like, oh shit, that's your old friend. He's still around and he's still there to help and provide his like unique insight on things.
Yeah, no, he's all right. Yeah, when Ced confronts him about Ernius's death, he merely replies with a curt, "Well, that's too
Yeah.
bad." It's like, geez, dude. It's but I guess it's technically not him
Yeah, essentially.
in some
But it
way. So that's a cool
it's a cool
like
angle. Like it's just an interesting way to pull that kind of idea off.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad I remembered
Yeah,
that
that's
because I did want to
oh
talk
yeah,
about that.
great. Uh but yeah, what was I talking about? Like I think mentioned pretty much everything that I wanted to say about the game.
Yeah.
I I wrote down a
Uh,
handful of notes, but there wasn't like all too much. Like I just wrote down like keywords like map, Arvis, and stuff like that, just like single words, and those were enough for me to like bring up everything that I had in my mind about it because it's already like a
yeah.
game that I like a lot, and yeah, like I said, if you're into Fire Emblem, just give the game a shot because it's just really worth trying out.
Yeah,
I definitely I would say it's not like the best Fire Emblem game to start with as like a newcomer to the series, because
definitely no.
it will give you the false idea of what the franchise is like. I believe if you like use it as your first game, but it's
Yeah,
definitely a good one to go for after like playing one or two of the GBA games. Like Sacred Stones
yeah.
and Blazing Blade are easily like the easiest to get into when you are a newcomer.
Uh, yep, completely agree. I would definitely recommend. I mean, it's probably easiest for someone to play like Three Houses first. So I in that way
Oh
I would
yeah, Three Houses
recommend.
definitely. I'm not,
I would
I'm not
recommend Three
used to.
Houses because
Not,
as much as we shit
yeah,
on it, and as we criticize it, I do still think it's a pretty good,
it's a
great
solid
game.
game ultimately. Like there's a lot to
And
criticize, but that just means that like this the game is worth talking about ultimately.
yeah, it sparks conversation. Can't, it's not a
Yeah,
boring game.
definitely not. It's just overall like Three Houses. I will shit on that game for days on end. I will say
Mm-hmm.
the plot is sometimes convoluted and doesn't make any good amount of sense. Byleth is boring.
Byleth is
Yeah.
boring. Yeah, here's a pro about Genealogy of the Holy War. There's no fucking shitty self-insert
Yes.
character.
I don't want to go on a
Sigurd is very
I
much
don't
his
want to
own
go
guy.
on a tangent about like oh silent protects are boring, but like silent protects can work if the story around them doesn't constantly say like oh yeah they're so insightful and intelligent, and
Yep,
meanwhile you sit
agree.
there and like where is that insight and intelligence?
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Yeah, it's just they did Robin well, right? Robin was a self-insert avatar. Like you could even customize them to be more like to your liking, and even then they gave him like a unique personality and all.
Yeah, I've actually never played Awakening, so I can't really say. But people seem to like Robin
I can
out of all the
yeah,
Avatar
Robin is
characters.
like the way he's pulled off is well there rather. It's just like
He
yeah, he
exists.
exists, but also has like unique conversations with a lot of the characters and like interaction that actually like characterize them as someone.
Yeah,
So it's not like Byleth who sits there in a support conversation and nods and like does like a
the
yeah the
1,000 yard
thousand-yard
stare.
stare, sometimes nods and then like does like that weird hand gesture he does when he explains something.
Oh boy.
Professor, you really
Well,
changed my ways, and meanwhile Byleth is standing there nodding.
thank you, thank you so much for
Yeah,
doing this
I'm
with
happy
me.
to be here, to have been here.
Yeah, I'm glad I did this. There's no way I would have made an actual video about genealogy. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's definitely like
but I still wanted to
yeah.
talk about it.
And if you ever do like think about making a proper like just quicker video about genealogy, I'd be happy to like be there in some capacity as well. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, I'd be
Hmm.
down for that. Um, are you before I sign off? I do want to ask you one question. Are If you had to play another Fire Emblem game, which one would it be
I'll
next?
definitely give Path of Radiance a try next, I think. If
Path
I'm
of
not
Radiance.
replaying
Yeah.
like FE6 or FE7 again. Well, again,
If you are interested in playing FE6, have you ever heard of Project Ember?
I haven't actually.
It's this hack that someone made for Fire Emblem 6 that kind of like revamps the entire game. I hear really good
Oh,
things
that's
about
good.
it. I personally didn't play it myself, but look into it. Maybe
So
it's
it
something that could
so it
spice up a
fixes things like
replay.
Roy being fucking garbage.
Yes, you can promote Roy with a Knight's
Oh, that's
Grasp,
great. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
and it nerfs thrones.
Thank
So
fucking God.
you don't need the sick Rutger on every single boss.
God, I remember like having
Uh,
to like reset and speed up 50 times so I could chip away at the boss of like strong enough magic or whatever.
yeah, it's ridiculous in Binding Blade.
uh,
So Path of Radiance is what you'd be
yeah,
interested
that's
in
the next
playing.
one I will probably play. If I
Yeah.
can
Uh.
find a legitimate copy on the internet for a reasonable price.
Yeah. Christ. I actually picked up a copy of Radiant Dawn like last month or
Oh,
so. It
oh
wasn't
God.
cheap. It wasn't Path of
A friend
Radiance
of mine, also
expensive, but
from Facepunch, funnily enough.
oh yeah,
Zavari, does that name like ring a bell? Like
Zavari.
Zvaari. Okay.
No, I'm afraid not.
He like I think 2 years ago or so he found a copy of Path of Radiance, but like original for the GameCube for like $20 at a French GameStop. Yeah, like yeah,
Jealous.
absolutely. But yeah, that's about the baseline about everything. Yeah.
That's cool. I uh big shocker, but if I'm playing another Fire Emblem game, the next one I'm definitely gonna go through is Thracia.
Oh, I'll be excited to hear your thoughts on that.
Get my yeah. Uh, I mean, I know a lot about it already because I've seen people play it, but it's a whole separate beast to play it
Yeah,
for
and like,
yourself. And there's finally a good translation of the game out there.
yeah, about time because Jesus Christ, I remember like the olden days of Thracia translations where it was like, eh,
The one where Kemp calls Olwen a
yeah, and
stupid
Trash in
bitch
America.
in
Don't forget the
America.
dialogue where a character just says asterisk asterisk hashtag colon and symbol.
Or how the translation doesn't tell you that if you escape with Leaf on escape maps, then all of your other units get thrown away.
Yeah, so oh
Shit
man.
like that. Yeah. So it'll be nice to play
Hmm.
Thracia after years of having its reputation
Yeah.
precede it. I'm probably not gonna play it right away. I'm currently playing Sakura Wars actually, because that actually got an English
Oh,
translation
interesting.
just last year. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see how it is because I know people really like that series, and I figured I'd give it a shot since I have a Saturn, so
I might
I can
as
play
well.
it.
Yeah,
Yep,
all right, I think that's all settled then. Yeah.
yep.
Again, thank you.
I never know how to end
Yeah,
these
me
things.
neither. Again, just thank you for having me, and
No
yeah,
problem. No problem.
and maybe we'll do another
Uh,
one like this in the future. We play another Fire Emblem game that is worth talking about to such
yeah,
a
of
big
course. I
extent.
don't really have anyone
Yeah.
else to talk about Fire Emblem with, so
Yeah.
you can be we can be the de facto Fire Emblem crew.
Matt at Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, and I'll be back soon.